Hello everybody, thank you very much for joining today and welcome to our Microsoft Masterclass Series. Today we'll be covering our generic Microsoft 365 overview and we'll be doing a deep dive into some of the products that are available and how organizations are using them. So just to start off with, quick summary of the agenda. We'll be doing an introduction. We'll go through the licensing that's available for Microsoft 365 and some of the key licenses that are available there. We'll then jump into a deep dive of Microsoft 365 and some of the products that are available. We'll talk about Microsoft Teams Viva, which is very exciting. We will give you some additional resources and then we'll have some Q&A at the end. So my name's Hugh Valentine, a specialist in Microsoft 365 and digital transformation, and I'm also the managing director here at Valto. We'll start with a quick overview of the licensing that's available. So there's a few different classes of licenses that we have. All of our clients, we are recommending the Microsoft 365 Business Premium license. So this license is ideal for organizations who are less than 300 users. And there's enterprise equivalents. So anybody who's joining today who are perhaps over 300 users who are in an enterprise or local authority, we have the Microsoft 365 E3 to E5 class of licenses. Now, the Microsoft 365 licenses, as opposed to the Office 365 licenses, include some additional security features. So Microsoft 365 Business Premium includes all of the productivity tools that I'm going to set out today, and I'll demonstrate how those are being utilized, but also the security functionality that's available provides immense value for organizations. So things like Intune allows us for device management, Azure AD conditional access gives us additional security products, and the equivalents that are available within the Microsoft 365 E3 and E5 also include those security products as well. So the licensing, really, we would recommend that you investigate making sure you have a Microsoft 365 Business Premium or a Microsoft 365 E3 license. What we're going to cover today is an overview of the products that are available and how organizations are typically using those. So it's to give you an idea of how other organizations are using them, how they're being rolled out, and how you can adopt and make sure that they're governed correctly too. We'll start off this with our SharePoint demonstration. Now, we've covered this in a few slides, but for people that a few of our previous presentations, but for people who haven't seen this before, we have three kind of tools that we can use to share information in the Microsoft 365 platform. So often it's about getting your head around what each of these tools can be used for and how that can be used for storing information. So the first one we have is SharePoint. Now, SharePoint we see as a company-wide platform. So the idea of this is we can build a SharePoint Internet type solution, and that becomes the landing page for your organization. So we have things like news, policies. Each department can have a publishing area that they know everyone in the company has access to, and that can then be used for sharing things like documents and templates and other things. We also have OneDrive. So OneDrive is an ideal location for the user's personal information. You might have home directories at the moment that are on network drives, and you might be using that kind of area to store their personal documentation and stuff. So as part of Microsoft 365, we look to use OneDrive, and that platform basically allows us to create a personal location for the user. And if they need to do some ad hoc sharing, then we have a location there that they can do for sharing folders and files, for example, with a supplier or customer. And then finally, we have Microsoft Teams. So Microsoft Teams is a collaboration tool that organizations are kind of using to modernize the way they work, replace internal emails, and create departmental and project pages in which everyone can start to participate. So we'll cover these three tools off, and associated with these are then other things that can help. So things like Planner, Microsoft To Do, we'll cover off how those can be utilized and how they can benefit your organization. So the first one is SharePoint. So as I said, we should design a SharePoint site so that when we load this page up, if you're a new starter in the organization, it's very easy to find the information you're looking for. So if I was a new starter looking through a network drive, it's very clunky, it's difficult to find, and unless you know the structure of the folders, you're not going to find things like policies. So this first landing page here has policies set out, so it's very easy for me to jump into that policy section and find exactly what I'm looking for. And I've also got some links to some other systems in here. So these could be external systems, like a leave request system, or they could perhaps be something that's developed using PowerApps. So we could have something that's been created by our developers, like a visitors or an expenses system. The homepage itself can also include some other useful information. So we can have company news. So if your organization is trying to work on comms and how we can improve this aspect, we can use the company news section here to post either links to other web pages, like we got a BBC News article here, or we can also use it for internal type news, so new starters, announcements. This news feed can be tailored. So if you're a large organization and you want to present different news to that user based on the department they work in or the location they're based at, the company news section is very powerful, and we can use some AI to kind of present different types of articles back to the user depending where they're from. It's also very easy to update news. So if I was adding a news link in here, I can simply just use the news link option. And I can find then an article from the internet that I'm interested in sharing with people. And I can simply paste that in, and Microsoft will go scrape that page and come back and provide a link to the page most of the time. Obviously, during a live webinar, it doesn't want to work quite the same way. So I'll just try a different link. And you'll see here that it goes to grab a image from that page, the title, and a description. So it's very quick for me to share external news with the rest of my organization. I can also kind of choose news post. And the great thing with this section is I'm actually able to develop templates. So if you wanted to create some newsletter type templates or new starter templates, when I'm within this platform, I can very easily create a news article based on a template I've used previously. So I can come into here and say new starter Hugh Valentine, and I can then, just like I would with Word, I'm able to kind of update this very simply, and it's kind of just like using Microsoft Word. So there's not a huge training leap that's going to be required for people to start utilizing this platform. Microsoft have also improved vastly the ability for changing images. So if I wanted to find a better image on here, I can kind of use this stock images option that's available. So there's a whole host of royalty-free images that are available within here. And I could search for something like computing, and that'll come back with some different images that I can use and post those in. So the experience for creating news and pages is very, very easy. And if you want to kind of create a news hub in your organization, we've got lots of options. So I've got a few different styles here with our Valto head office news. You can say this is laid out quite nicely, and I can see all the articles that are available within here. But we can have different types of views. I can have like a hero style. I can have more of a notifications, and I can have a really large banner type as well. So it's great functionality that's available out of the box with SharePoint Online. I can also have interactive types of content on here. So I can see that I've got a weather web part and a clock. So if you work in multiple regions, it can be handy to see what time zone you're at, what the other countries are in, so you can message them at an appropriate time. You can have a countdown timer. So you can kind of, if you've got a project that's running, we're able to easily add that on. And we can put some interactive content on there. So rather than duplicating the news that you're posting on Twitter, you could perhaps point to your Twitter page on here, and then you've got some dynamic content on that homepage that updates all the time. This page has got some other things on, like upcoming events, and then we've also got some links on the bottom here too. We can also go to different styles. So this style here is more providing a banner where it's very visual, so that people coming into this can see the visual news articles and what's going on within this platform too. So it's very rare now that customers that we're working with need to go out and procure other intranet solutions that add on to SharePoint, because there's a lot of functionality that we have available within this platform. When we're looking to build kind of intranet solutions, And as I said to you at the beginning, it's all about making information easier to find. So if I'm a new starter joining this organization, we want to make it as easy as possible. And what we're finding with COVID is the onboarding experience for new starters isn't great in a lot of organizations. They're struggling to do the paper-based induction process, or perhaps the walking around the office to meet people. That's not very effective now we're working remotely. So what we can do is we can look to build departmental areas. So when I hover over this section, I can see all the departments that exist in the organization, and I can jump into the compliance page. The whole idea of SharePoint is for it to be an open platform. So I wouldn't want to hit compliance or finance and be presented with an access denied page. What the departments here are doing is this is an opportunity for them to share information. So on a traditional network drive, you often end up with a shared network drive that everyone dumps loads of things and you put the policies and QMS documents into, because that's the only shared location you have. With SharePoint Online, we can kind of make that a much more intuitive and user-friendly experience. So only the compliance department would have access to update and change this page, but everyone else in the company has access to view and kind of consume what's in here. So this means that if I'm looking for compliance information, I can see frequently asked questions. I can see who the compliance team members are. So if I'm brand new to the company, I can see Chris, I can see a picture about him, and I can see all of his contact details as well. So very handy from that side. We can also see an overview of what the department's responsible for, and we can then see documents. So these are perhaps things that might have been in a shared drive previously, where we can see instructions, processes, templates, and we can even have some videos on here as well. So we can make that very easy to put training videos in. Often when we're working with departments, the questions that we get asked are, why would we update this page? What's the benefit? Lots of people see that this would just be another admin task that they would have to do. But if you think about it, we can use this to kind of reduce the amount of admin they get. They can reduce the amount of emails that they're receiving by pointing everyone to this page. First of all, they'll be able to answer their own questions, and therefore you're going to receive less emails. So if you think each department, marketing could put all their branding materials, logos, letterheads, HR could put the employee benefits, and finance can kind of put all of their forms and procedures. So it becomes very easy to find information. SharePoint's great if you're not a frequent user of that department, as in you work for IT, you have very little involvement with marketing. Marketing have the opportunity to present this page in a very user-friendly and intuitive way, so people can find that information without sending emails. The next thing that we can do within SharePoint, and this is where we start to touch on things like PowerApps, Power Automate, and Microsoft Lists. So within this platform here, we have a section called Employee Details. So we've kind of built some modules that people are able to kind of go away and purchase, but these are also fantastic use cases that you guys can start to implement and build upon straight away. Everything that I'm demonstrating is just using out-of-the-box functionality. So everything I'm showing you, you could technically go ahead and deploy these kinds of solutions as well. So Employee Details is a very simple list. Lots of organizations, when they have new starters, they're using a spreadsheet to track this information. So you can see here on my employee details, if I hit the new button, we have a Microsoft list that's been created that's tracking all of that information for the new starter. So on this page, we'll be able to see when it loads up. Try again. So we'll be able to see the employee, the manager, the department they work for, some personal information. But in essence, once we filled this form in, we then use a product called Power Automate to kick off two tasks. So the first one is, let's send the new employee all the stuff that they should do on their first day. So a digital induction. So have you read the health and safety policy? Have you read the equipment policy? Have you read the expenses policy, and so on and so forth? So on day one, when they first join that organization, they open their emails and they'll receive 5 emails. Within those emails will be a button and a PDF that says, I have read and understand these policies. So it's very easy to make sure that that's being tracked. And in this case, Steve, who hasn't completed his expenses policy, we can also use Power Automate to continually remind Steve until he's completed that process. Similarly, we can also do a new hire checklist. So this might be, a new starter checklist. So all of the departments will also have responsibilities for when that employee joins. So IT will want to purchase them a laptop. Finance might want to get them set up in payroll. So this is also reminding each department that they need to go out and do their tasks. So think of Microsoft Lists and Power Automate to replace those clunky spreadsheets that you'll be using in your organization, and also then put them on steroids, give you that capability of putting reminders in, putting approvals in, so you're not having to do all that chasing manually. On the back of this, then we've also got some kind of onboarding templates. So as I said to you at the beginning, we're finding now it's very challenging for people who are working from home to get an effective onboarding experience. There's two routes that it can go down. The first route is they don't get a very good onboarding experience at all. And because we're lacking that ability to sit down with them at the desk and go through paper and get them to sign it, we're kind of not doing the onboarding as well as we should. The second one is that perhaps we're overwhelming them and we're doing too many videos and meetings, and they quickly get in a position where they're spending the first 30 days in the organization on thousands of Teams meetings. So this onboarding system is designed that we look at the onboarding process and we create a digital version of that. So there's 4 portals in here provided as templates. The first one is a pre-onboarding template. So this one is designed that if you have someone who's accepted the job, we can send them access just to this portal, to their personal email address, so they won't receive anything else. And it's a way of orientating them around the company. First of all, we can welcome them. We can kind of give them an idea of what the values of the company are, what the benefits they can look forward to, some of the connections that they'll be working with, and some of the latest news that we have as well. So it just serves as a way of getting them excited about joining the organization and where they're coming to. We can also kind of go to prepare for the first day. So within here, you can kind of document what they should expect on their first day, what they should bring with them, maps if they get lost or they need to contact anyone, who the best people to contact would be as well. So this is just a very simple SharePoint site that's used to kind of do that pre-onboarding experience. We also have the employee onboarding side of things. So the idea of this one is that they open this portal on day 1, and this is the digital induction process. This is getting rid of the manual sitting down or sending them paper versions of documents. It's thinking about that journey and thinking about what we want them to go through. So the idea is in their first day in the company, they can load this page up and we have kind of welcome to the company, let's get started. We can put a blurb about the story of the organization. The CEO can create a welcome kind of section in here, and I recommend that the CEO creates a video. So when you click into this, there could be some text on the right hand side explaining about the company, but also Joe could then create a message for all the new starters when they join. We can also use it kind of to point people to kind of some of the resources that you have available. So if you're using social groups or Yammer, that kind of thing can be shown within here. We can kind of point them to a section within here to get them set up for the various systems. So how do you set up your payroll information, key policies that we want them to review. And then right at the bottom, my favorite section is kind of building these video sections out. So what we were finding with new starters who were joining the organization is they were getting overwhelmed with the amount of meetings that they were joining. And that also sucks a lot of time up for the people that they're talking with. So we'd find, for example, Dougie, our development lead, he would do an introduction with every new member of staff to explain what we do, what are our services, what does PowerApps mean. So it takes a long time for that Dougie to be on that call. And what we found now is we can build the Valto Academy and we can point new starters to that Valto Academy. So what that means is that they're able to then kind of jump in, watch the video that Dougie's created. He's created an introduction to the Valto development team that he can, as a generic version that he can send to everybody. He still does the welcome to the company piece. So he now spends 10, 15 minutes on the call, but that's very much serving as a personal touch. Hi, I'm Dougie. Nice to meet you. Thank you very much for joining. And then he points them to the video section. He says, and if you go to this section, you can see all of our products and all of our services, and you can get started from there. So that's kind of digitizing that experience, and it'll save your onboarding team a lot of time. And it also means you guys get an opportunity to create curated resources for those. You might be able to put some more time in and create a high quality introduction to development, introduction to support, introduction to our values. And then when that digital induction's in here, you're going to kind of, every new starter gets the same experience as you've designed it. Within the page as well, expanding on that first page, you can kind of outline what you'd want them to do in the first day. So you can kind of, if you've got questions, here's the best people to contact. We've also expanded on that checklist, so we can kind of do an onboarding checklist. So here we've got a list of the tasks that they should do in the first 30 to 90 days in the company. So it's kind of spreading those videos out. We don't want to just change the meetings that they're doing to thousands of videos that they have to watch. So within here, you can kind of outline your expectations, when they should be done by, and the mentor, and any videos that they should watch alongside them. So things like get started with 365 training, read the new starter policy, set your signature up, upload a picture, all that kind of stuff is outlined in here. And we then create a very effective induction process. Lastly, just to touch on it quickly, each department can also create a section like this. So if you join in the engineering team, you can kind of do an introduction, who the team is, their kind of ethics and how they work. You can also document how they should get their computers and systems set up. So again, you don't have to sit with that new starter on the first day. You can document these processes out for them. And we can also outline some of the other key people that have joined the organization and some of the disciplines. So SharePoint is a fantastic place to put all of that knowledge in an organization. So that it gives you a good example of building those onboarding portals for people. We can also build training portals. So very similar. So we won't spend too much time on here, but for example, whenever we do a Microsoft 365 project, we roll out these training portals, and it has things like useful links in here, upcoming training courses, documents, and then videos that you're sharing, perhaps linking back to that academy that I mentioned earlier. So Stream is the functionality here that's providing those videos. So in the background of this, we have something called Microsoft Stream. And Stream allows you to think of Stream as a YouTube for your organization. So my training portal is just showing the training channel. However, Stream allows us to create different channels within here. So I've got a few different channels that we have. We've got our Valto Academy. We've got a sales material section. We've got our client videos. So the idea of Stream is you build those channels out, build those resources, and also Microsoft Viva is going to build upon these as well. So within Viva, think of that as a learning type, knowledge base type system. So I would be able to create some videos here. I could create perhaps finance onboarding videos, and Viva is going to present those videos back to the user to make those easier to find as well. So that's kind of training information. So watch this space as Viva expands. Microsoft also has a fantastic tool called the Learning Pathways. So you can deploy this for free. And this basically is a resources that Microsoft have provided where they've got training on things like Teams, OneDrive, and SharePoint. So if you don't have any training materials at the moment and you're looking to kind of get these things adopted, look at deploying the Learning Pathways. You can just Google SharePoint Lookbook, and the link that you'll come up with then is kind of, this is Microsoft's Lookbook, where they provide lots of ideas on how you can design various SharePoint pieces. But if you click View the Designs at the top here, and then hover over Solutions, you've got both the Learning Pathways and that Employee Onboarding Hub, which we talked about as well. We've then kind of expanded on how SharePoint is a very powerful document management system. So we have here a QMS system. So if you guys have ISO accreditations like 9001, 27001, SharePoint, when it was very first created, was designed as a document management system. So it's one of the leading enterprise document management solutions that's available as well. So you can see when I come into this initial QMS page, I can see all the accreditations and policies that I currently have within the organization. If I jump into ISO 9001, with SharePoint, we can make nicely laid out pages. So I'm able to kind of lay out the 9001 standard and all the documents that help with this. And I can also share this externally with the auditor. So if I've got the auditor coming in, I could search for that person externally. So I'll put my personal email in there, and you'll see here that it's warning me that I'm outside the organization. But if you're getting audited, that's fantastic just to get them in and they can start to self-audit straight away. We can also look at the documents. So within this, with a document library, we can add all the documents and upload these into the system. But as part of SharePoint, we're able to then add different types of metadata. So we've added a few key ones here. We have review date, review period, and reviewer. So this allows us to populate these fields with the various types of information. So I can put this review date and I want it to be reviewed every 6 months. And the reviewer would be Steve and I would be the approver. Now, Power Automate is sitting in the background of this, and that's the mechanism that we can then use to actually do something about these. So the review date, when this Power Automate hits this date here, it'll then trigger with the reviewer, which is Steve, to say, hey, it's time to review the data protection policy. He can make any changes that he wants to it, and when he's ready, he can hit submit for approval, and that then sends me an email, and I can stamp those changes off as complete. So kind of handling the automated review of policies, which is something you have to be able to do as part of an ISO accreditation. We can also kind of tag things with different tags for the document types. We can, on this one, we've indicated whether it's a key policy. So this links back to our onboarding system, so that if this is marked as a key policy, that's where we have that checklist at the beginning. It'll grab all the key policies for a new starter and to say, hey, you need to read these documents on day one. So it builds nicely back into that functionality that I showed before. We then have retention labels here on the right-hand side. So one of the Microsoft 365 Business Premium and Microsoft 365 E3 licenses is the ability to create retention and sensitivity labels. So as we put documents into this platform, they could be these structured documents where we have our policies, but they may be also something that we're using as we come to this later on for Teams documents. They might be just departmental documents or OneDrive documents. What we can do within here is we can define security and compliance labels. So this retention label here for finance means that basically it will protect this document and it will keep it for 7 years. So if someone tries to delete that document before the 7 years is up, it will prevent them from doing so. And also, once that document hits 7 years, it'll then notify that person to say, hey, it's time to review the finance document. So what that looks like is in the back end of Microsoft 365, we have our Microsoft 365 Compliance Center. And within here, we're able to define the labels. So you can see my finance label has a retention duration of 7 years. So what this means is that after 7 years, well, for 7 years, it's going to preserve it. Then after 7 years, it's going to go through a review process. So it's going to notify all the people in the finance group that it's time to review the finance document, and they can then decide on whether they want to review it, keep it, delete it, or whatever they want to do. So if I hit explore items here, you can see we've got 16 items with this label. Pending disposition means they've hit 7 years old. None of these are 7 years as of yet, but you can see I can then choose to dispose, extend, relabel, or export that information. So that's kind of what the retention labels are for. Think of them in your organization. You could be using them for protecting employee contracts. So another thing you can do with a retention label is you can have a retention event. So we should keep employee contracts for 2 years or 7 years after that employee's left the organization. So a retention event would say, trigger this retention once the employee's left. So I could tag all the documents for Hugh Valentine as an asset, And then I can say, right, Hugh Valentine's left the organization, and that's when the retention period starts. It would be no good if it just deleted it 2 years when I was still there. So the retention events are then to kind of drive to make sure that we're only kicking that retention in when it's needed. Other things you can do with Power Automate. So we've got a policy tracker in here. So this then sends out an email to every single member of staff. So when there is a new version, it then emails everybody. So you can see here that everyone's read the data protection policy. Apart from Faye, you will be getting reminders in the background. And that's the kind of thing that we're able to do with the Power Automate function. Finally, we kind of talked about pages when I showed you the news articles, but this is an example of a policy that's been converted to a page. So instead of it being a Word document, we're using the power of SharePoint to kind of make this more intuitive and interactive. So I've got the manual handling policy. You can see here I've got all the text associated with it. But then on the right-hand side, I've got some interactive content. So I've got a video here. People are much more likely to watch this video than read all this text. So it gives you a great way of kind of putting something interactive in there. And you may also find you can get your message across better in a video. So back to my example of the onboarding system, Dougie's video explaining our services is going to be a lot more effective than a load of text associated with it. Finally, we can also put a quiz in there. So this is using something called Microsoft Forms. So we can embed forms into the page, and we can use this to kind of test their knowledge. So rather than just asking them to confirm they've read the policy, we can take that one step further, and we can actually get them to prove they've read it by getting the quiz right. As I've been going through this demonstration, across the top here, you'll notice I've got this top bar. So SharePoint is made up of lots and lots of different sites. So as I jump into this compliance site, this is a completely different site that has completely different permissions to the rest of the site. So this bar at the top is created by me creating a hub at the very top level. So I can create a hub to link all of the resources that I want together. So for example, my intranet, I want to link all the resources associated with it. So it has this same navigation bar across the top, but also has a consistent brand and look and feel as well. So to get this bar at the top, we create a hub, and then we can link all of the sites together. If you're an organization with multiple countries, you may have multiple intranets with multiple regions, so you would have multiple hubs to link those resources together. With this now, we can also have something called PowerApps. So to kind of demonstrate the concept of a PowerApp, we've got a leave request system here, but we'll also jump into a couple of other examples here of where you could find this would be useful. So we have a initial one called leave request. So the idea is you can come into this home page within SharePoint, and we can see all of the policies and who's responsible for looking after it. SharePoint's actually used as the database for this Power App. So as long as you're building things in Office 365, you can use the PowerApps product for free. So we can put all of the requests in here, use SharePoint as the database. And that means that when I create a request in here, I can choose things like holiday. I can choose how long I'm going to be off for, and it'll automatically deduct my allowance. And when I hit submit request, Power Automate will kick in to send an approval to my line manager. So it means that I can kick that kind of process off as well then. On here, I can also go to leave balance. So you can see a Power App can be very interactive, intuitive, but it can also be run on any device. So this might be a mobile phone that I'm running on. You can see this one's actually designed for a tablet or a PC. So that's an example of a Power App, a kind of holiday booking. Another example here, this one was built for an organization who are a manufacturing organization. So they have a shift process, and the idea is that from one shift to another, they're supposed to do a handover and make sure that everything's running smoothly. So within my platform here, I can choose process inspection. We have again here another Power App. And what I'm able to do then is I can choose new audit, and I can kind of then choose the audits that are available. So you can see, is the line clean and in order? Are the operators trained? I hit the select option, and you can see there's a list of checks. So at the end of every line in that factory now, they have a tablet and when they're going home, they go through this process just to make sure that they've followed everything. So no parts on the ground, the line's clean, there's no swarf, and they basically mark everything off. If they come across an issue, they can hit not okay, and that then raises a corrective action. So the next person that comes on shift, we can then kind of go into view actions and kind of see all the open actions from the previous version, previous person on the shift too. The inspections are all logged in a database, as I mentioned before. So if I went to the audit section, I can see all of the answers that were made and the data that's being logged. So all of this information can be reported on. You could connect Power BI to this, and Microsoft lists are being used to store this information so that we can report on it. There's a separate list for the actions that would be raised within the platform. And then we also have our report section at the top here. So it kind of, you can see I can create a very visual dashboard for this section. So that's kind of a quick overview. Just to give you other ideas, we've got a desk booking app. So organizations that are looking to build a desk, kind of book desks out in their organization. This allows you to pick a calendar, and then you can choose desks that are available and mark those off as well. So helping with kind of some of the COVID challenges we have. We have this other system, just to give you another idea. So we have to do these vehicle checks. So this one, you can see all the vehicle checks that you're supposed to do. And I can go into kind of breaks, and similar to the handover sheet, it tells me the checks that I should be doing, which logs into a database and also gives me an overview of the actual check and what I should be doing. So we've got loads of these. I won't go through any more, but that kind of covers off SharePoint as an intranet solution. We covered off the document management components, and we also went into how PowerApps, Power Automate can be used to drive processes and kind of streamline those sides of things as well. The next platform that we're going to cover off is Microsoft Teams. So as I said at the beginning, Microsoft Teams is kind of the collaboration area. SharePoint's great if you're not sure what you're looking for, you're trying to find policies as an example, you'd go straight into this system, or you're looking for information from another department. So SharePoint becomes that, helps you find things. Now Teams basically allows us to create different types of teams, and the kind of common teams that we see in an organization are departmental teams. So a departmental team, for example, you would create one for finance, IT, HR, and if this is used fully, it can become the modern way of communicating. So we work with lots of organizations now who work towards this goal of not sending internal emails, and they find that Microsoft Teams is a much more streamlined and effective way of doing that communication. So we can build a team for IT or finance. They can replace all their internal emails, and then they can communicate through the group chat. They also use the meeting functionality to kind of host regular department meetings. So set up a framework if you're working from home. Perhaps you start having a daily call in the morning and a call in the afternoon. We can also create teams for projects. So if I'm doing a project where I've got suppliers or partners or other departments involved, you could spin up a team for that purpose. And we can use things like Planner for task management and some other pieces as well. We also have company-wide teams. So this can be the central kind of communication hub within an organization. It can be used for posting new news from SharePoint. You could use it for praising people and just general chit chat to replace that all email that people often have. And finally, we can create teams for social and initiatives as well. So if you were running a campaign on mental health awareness, then you would be able to kind of create a team for that, and people who are interested in it would be able to participate. So how that works in reality, we create the teams down the left hand side. You can see here I'm a member of this customer teams where there's quite a lot going on. But what I can also do is I can kind of see that I'm a member of this finance team here. So this means that I use this as the primary way of communicating. So we can use the chat functionality here, and very quickly we can tag the whole team if I want to get that team's information, or I can tag an individual if I wanted to just tag a certain person from the finance. And the way that Teams works best is if you get the tagging right in an organization. So if I tag the whole team, it means it's important. I might be wanting them to read a policy or a proposal I've worked on. If I'm tagging Chris as an individual, it's because he's perhaps got a task that I'm after for it. But the key really is keeping it within this department team means that your whole team can see what's going on and be aware of what's happening. So in this thread here, Sally called for Chris. Now, it's handy that everyone else in the team can see that, because if Sally calls later on in the day, someone else can add to that message. Or if, for example, I'd ask Chris to do a particular task, then I'd be able to kind of say, Chris, we need this today. And Chris can then respond back and say, I've actually given this to Steve. So by sending emails individually to people or sending chats individually to people, we lose that ability for people to be able to kind of communicate and see what's going on. So by building a department team, if we can get all the communications in that team for the department and use the tagging, then it becomes a very effective way of working. Within here as well, we can have a file section. So lots of organizations now are moving away from a traditional file server and things like Dropbox and Box and moving this into this kind of structure. So you can see in my file section, I can see all the finance files. The syncing option is very important because the syncing option allows me to see all the files that I can see within here, and I can see kind of the folders as if it is a network drive. You can do some nifty things like take folders offline if you want to work on those while you're on the move. And you can also share these files and folders externally or perhaps with someone outside of the finance team. So it means you can get away from messy file permission structures and really look at simplifying that. We can also build a wiki for that department. So the wiki is kind of a knowledge base for that team. So it shows all of the kind of new starter procedures, policies, that kind of thing. So as you're a new starter in the organization, you can quickly get up to speed with how to do various components. We also have Planner. So each team can have a planner associated with it. And think of this as the centralized tools that are available for that department. So I can use this to create tasks and associate them to people within the finance team. And I can create subtasks and due dates, and I can very clearly see where people are up to and what's going on within this organization. If you're a member of multiple teams, though, you might find that it's difficult to keep track of all the different projects that you have available to you. So what we can do is use something called To Do, and hidden in the To Do settings, we can switch on To Do for Planner and flagged email. So if you're in the habit of flagging email in Outlook as you get things, then you can flag those emails and it'll pop up in this list here. We can also choose Assign to You, and you'll see all the tasks across the team planners. So if you've got 5 or 6 different teams with planners in, this will show you all those tasks in one view. And you're able to then right click on one of those tasks and choose Add to My Day. And the My Day functionality gives you an idea of everything that you're working on in that day and what you need to work on. So it gives you a centralized list of what's happening. So Planner's a very great tool that can be used for centrally managing your group tasks and having a basic project management type system. And then To Do allows you to bring all those together for that individual who can then plan out exactly what he plans to work on in the day and what the plan is for that side of things. We can also choose add other types of apps in here. So you could have PowerApps, which I demonstrated earlier, but I could add the expenses app as an example, as an option in here. So I don't have to leave Teams to start using things like PowerApps and everything. I can find them all from within one application. If you're a heavy user of SharePoint and you have built your intranet, you can also add a tab to the left-hand side here. So I can see here expenses app eventually loaded, but I can also add a tab to the left-hand side so I can open up my intranet within this section as well. So I can kind of see, all right, here's my intranet as I've demonstrated to you previously. So Teams can really become the one-stop shop that an organization uses within their platform. They don't have to be using lots of different applications. So that kind of gives you an overview of some of the key products that are available. If we go to the All Apps page, and I'll just give you a quick overview of where we've gone up to so far. So within here, you can see We've covered off, it kind of touched on a lot of these. So we went through Microsoft Lists, which can be used for creating that tracking information like onboarding, new starters, perhaps even projects. We went through PowerApps, which allows us to create mobile applications and tablet type views. We touched very lightly on forms, which allowed us to create a form to test that user's knowledge, but you can also use forms for feedback. So we also have a training feedback form. So anytime we do a training with our external customers, we send them this feedback form, and it allows us to capture all of the information of the training and how we did and any other comments that people had made during that training as well. We've been through Power Automate, which at a high level, we kind of showed how you can create approvals, reminder workflows, but Power Automate can do a lot more. So we have got some customers where we've done API integrations and we've kicked off more advanced kind of scheduled tasks within it. So Power Automate can be very simple and you can design those yourself, but it can be much more involved and it can kind of be used to create very advanced systems. We talked very briefly on the security and compliance, and we talked about how retention labels can be applied to the documents. So we can use this for managing kind of retention and getting people up to speed with making sure they're deleting and obliging their GDPR pieces. We talked about Planner, which ties in with Microsoft Teams to help you create tasks and make sure that people are kind of working effectively. And we also talked about To Do, which brings all of your Planner tasks together in one place. We also covered off Stream as a training type platform. So Stream allows us to create those training videos and allow people then to see kind of classes, meetings, and then the other videos that you've recorded. There is some other useful tools. We won't go perhaps through all of these, but OneDrive is a personal storage for that user. So it allows you to replace that personal network drive. Again, you can access this through the web or in a web browser, but the most powerful functionality is to hit that sync option at the very top, and it creates a synchronized copy on your PC as well. The great thing with it now is you can actually move your desktop documents and pictures. And if you have Intune, you can automatically do that. So that allows us to then basically make sure that users who are still using desktop documents and pictures, that their data is always backed up and stored in the cloud. So it's a great way of keeping on top of that. But OneDrive on top of that's very similar to SharePoint, in which you can store your files. Every user has 1 terabyte available to them, so they get a lot of storage available, and it's their personal document area. We've also got Bookings, so this is available on most plans. Bookings is, as an example, I use this, anybody who's used Calendly or anything like that, but within my bookings here, if anybody needs to book any of my time, whether it's for a workshop, they can choose these options, or they can choose a meeting. And then it allows people to see a window into my diary and kind of say, right, I'm going to book Hugh for 11 a.m. on the 5th of March. They fill in their details at the bottom, and this then sends them a Microsoft Teams invitation. So think of Bookings as a way of helping you as a consultant kind of plan and get people booked in your diary and do that kind of thing. But also it can be extended. So it can be used as an example. You might be running classes across the whole organization. So a good use case that Microsoft have demonstrated is you could be running a charity where you have classes that you want to run, and you might charge for a fee for those classes. So you could set bookings up for people to kind of come into here and say, right, I want to do the education class. They pick the date and time that they want to do it, and it can go through a payment screen then to capture the payments for that side of things. So that's kind of a very quick sweeping snapshot of the products. So we went through a lot of those. There's a whole host of security tools which we've covered on a previous session, so you can find that on YouTube. But hopefully that gives you guys a good snapshot of the kind of Microsoft 365 products. We focused on 3 in particularly: SharePoint as the intranet, which then we tied in PowerApps and Power Automate into that platform. And we then used Microsoft Teams then to kind of demonstrate the chat functionality in Planner. So a lot of these applications, while you have a lot in this screen, you can find yourselves just jumping into things like SharePoint Teams, which then is kind of the window into the rest of them. So once you get your users up to speed with these two, they can quite often then start engaging with all the other pieces as well then. So to wrap up, we're also really excited about Microsoft Viva. So this is a new platform that will be available with Microsoft 365. And the idea of this platform is it's going to make it much easier to kind of put learning and collaboration within here and a knowledge-based type feed. So in effect, what will happen is if you're joining a new Microsoft team, we might be joining the finance team. The finance team has an opportunity to tag all of the resources, whether it's documents, videos, news, pages. And as they tag those, it then creates a kind of knowledge base. So if I join the finance team, I would be able to see all of the finance recommended articles. So it can kind of help with your onboarding. It can kind of be, hey, welcome to the finance team. Go watch these videos, go read these documents, and they can mark those off as complete. So as that starts to come in, we'll look at hosting another webinar that'll go into this in a lot more detail. But if you're looking at a learning management or knowledge-based system, I think this will be interesting for you guys. We then kind of got some resources that are available. So we've got our YouTube channel. So there's lots of videos and our previous sessions have been on there. I've got the previous thing from the adoption portal again, because there's so many resources that are available to you in there. If you're looking to try and get up to speed with adopting all of these, then look at the adoption portal and the course that's been created. And I also showed the learning pathways as part of the training portals as well. So get that deployed to help your users get up to speed with 365. We, of course, can do lots of workshops. So if you're looking to kind of create a Microsoft 365 strategy, we've got a specific strategy that covers off what I've been through in today in a lot more detail. So this is split out over 2 days. The first day covers an overview to show people what the possibilities are, and that covers both productivity and security tools. Once we've been through those, kind of giving you the idea of what's available within Microsoft 365, we then have 2 sessions, a business focus section, which is what the leaders of the organization would like 365 to do. So what are our regulations? What compliances are we following? It's less about what can Intune do, but more about this is what we have to do. So these are our retention obligations. This is how the business strategy works. Once we understand the business strategy, we can then do a technical focus, which is how do we actually make all of these products apply to reach those goals. So often we find that these might be broken down into 2 groups of people. The business focus is with the leaders and stakeholders of the organization, but the technical focus is then with the IT guys to say, right guys, we know what the business wants. How do we actually make that happen? How does Intune help us with that? How does SharePoint help us with that? And then as part of that, we come back with a phased roadmap with some timelines to kind of roll some of these pieces out. So we've got time for Q&A. So I can see that there's been a few questions that have been answered. One of those questions was, how do you get the top navigation across the SharePoint site? So I did cover that one off for you halfway through. So that is to create a hub in SharePoint Online, and you can then you can link all those resources to that hub so that they become linked and joined together. The second question is, my organization posts announcements via Teams. I receive a notification on Teams and an email. Is it possible to amend this so I can receive the notification on Teams? So yes, it is possible to do that. If you send me an email, hugh@valto.co.uk, I'll send some instructions on how you can kind of get rid of the email notification so you'll only receive it on Teams. Another question I had was, is it possible to link SharePoint News and Microsoft Teams posts? So yes, that's definitely doable. We can create a Power Automate that automatically pushes news articles from SharePoint once they've been posted and automatically creates them in Microsoft Teams. So that's another useful function of Power Automate. I don't have any other questions as of yet, So if anybody would like to post any final questions, I'll leave it open for a couple more seconds. Okay, perfect. So the next session we're doing is going to be focused on non-profits. So this, if you have any non-profits you're aware of, or you're a non-profit yourself, we're going to be doing a deep dive into how some of these tools can be really drive a non-profit. So things like forms that can be used to help with gathering their patient data or their kind of customer data, how we can use bookings to create articles, how to create bookings to run classrooms, and how you can create a secure shared environment for non-profits. So if you do know anyone that would be interested in that, that will be the 23rd of March. So thank you very much for joining, guys, and hopefully see you soon.